read a little bit from Anna in between. But before I do, just to set it in perspective of the Caribbean, of the immigrant experience, what happens is that you're in between, you know. Having lived in Trinidad, I grew up in Trinidad. I left when I was 19. And it was when I was 19, it was the first time I had any sense of what it was to be cold. You know, I used to stick my hand in the refrigerator so I could prepare myself for Wisconsin. And I remember arriving in September and I was just staring at these girls in these mini skirts. And I couldn't believe it. I had, like, you know, coat, hats, scarves, all kinds of stuff. And I didn't know what winter was, surely. Anyhow, after you live here for such a long time, you're not the real American. When they speak about the real American, it's not you. And when you get back home to Trinidad, they say to you, you haven't been here, what do you mean? So Anna in Between is kind of a novel that works that through. And what I was struck when I was doing it is that, I'm going back to Shakespeare here in The Tempest. I don't know if you remember when that ship crashed on the island, and Trinculo and Stefano came on the island, and they were hearing all these noises, and they got really scared. And Caliban says those very famous lines. And I just want to say a little bit of them so you can. He says, "Be not afeard. This isle is full of noises, songs and sweet airs that give delight and hurt not." And he goes on this wonderful lines by Caliban. Well, that's the test, isn't it? The test is that to the stranger coming to the island, the noises that they hear, the birds, the leaves crackling, scares them. They think that something's off. And Caliban says, "Be not afeard. This island is full of sounds and noises that give delight and hurt not." And then sometimes 1,000 twangling instruments will hum about mine ears, and sometimes voices that if I then had waked from long sleep, will make me sleep again. And then in dreaming the clouds methought would open and show riches ready to drop upon me, that when I wake, I cry to dream again. Well, Anna gets tested. If she feels that she belongs at home, then she should not be like Stefano and Trinculo. The noises shouldn't startle her and scare her. So Anna has ended up in Trinidad just for a vacation, but she discovers that her mother is ill, so she stays longer. Her mother has cancer. So this particular day, her mother has recovered, and she says, her mother is in a good mood that 2 days after the chemo sent her to bed for 12 hours straight, she announces she's ready to spend a day in the country. "Come with us," the father suggests. "Yes, Anna, you'd like it. It's beautiful on the north coast," her mother says. Perhaps all her mother is doing is stating a fact. It is beautiful on the north coast of the island, but her words get under Anna's skin. She's not a foreigner, a tourist. "I've seen the north coast," Anna says irritably. "So you won't come with us?" "Beatrice," the father turns to his wife in dismay. "Tell her to come. She'll have a great time." "It's just that you've been in America so long," her mother says, trying to reason with her. "I've lived there for 18 years, Mommy." "More there than here," her mother says. "It's still my country." Anna, you've become so sensitive. Of course this is still your country. Nobody's saying otherwise. Your father and I wanted to show it to you, that's all. "Show it to you? Show it to me?" "You know," her mother shrugs. "Just in case." "Just in case what?" "It's been a long time since you were there." Why is she so thin-skinned, so sensitive, as her mother says? She wants to go. For all her protest about the indelible stamp of her early years on the island, for all the resentment she feels when her mother intimates she has become American, she is forced to admit to herself there is much she has forgotten, much she can no longer claim as hers. She does not want to lose her moorings. She does not want to be set adrift on some Sargasso sea like the emigrants who left the island before her, the ones lured by England's siren song, only to discover that once they cleared the rubble left in the wake of the war, once they had rebuilt the mother country, England no longer had need for them. She wants to see more of the island. She needs to remember to hold on to home, to sunlit backyards perfumed with the scent of ripe mangoes, to salt-filled rain, to skies washed clean blue, to flamingos turning green trees in the mangrove red, to fishermen pulling in the seines in the silvery dawn. She needs to fix in her head waves breaking on the rocks below the narrow winding road to the north coast. Her mother tries again. I've asked Lydia to pack us lunch. Come with us, Anna, please. Remorseful, ashamed now of her childish reaction, Anna agrees to go. Her mother is right. She has forgotten how beautiful the North Coast is. The sun is a dry season sun that illuminates everything. Fluffy white clouds that drift lackadaisically across a pristine blue sky. Brown earth that sparkles when sunbeams gild metallic stones. They pass through small villages at the foot of the mountain, tiny houses clustered at the edge of the road, once a dirt track for horses pulling carts, and donkeys loaded with produce for the market. They see a donkey now, burlap bags bursting at the seams, grazing its flanks. The man sitting astride it waves his machete. All the villagers wave, laughter and talk, suspended when they pass by in their fancy car. The higher up the narrow road to the north coast they go, the fewer houses they see, only flashes of galvanized and painted wood here and there between the dense vegetation. 2 days of heavy rain and sporadic showers have watered roots, and like magic, trees have sprouted new leaves, vines, new tendrils that loop across branches. On the seaside of the road, the land plunges down deep precipices. Below, the water is rough. Waves crash against giant black rocks, miniature islands broken off from the land, and pitch glittering white sprays of seawater up to the sky. Anna drinks in the air that rushes through the car window. Salt carried on the wind stings her nose. This is what she needs to remember, what she needs to lock in her heart for wintry days in New York. We are almost there. Her father brings the car to a crawl. Do they have a specific destination? Until now, Anna had not thought so. The road bends and the sea disappears. They are entering the mountain now. On both sides, the forest grows thicker. Tall trees have spread their branches wide at the tops, and their leaves form a canopy shading the sun. But beneath them, new trees have multiplied and bushes grow wild. Be careful now, the mother directs her father across the road. Yes, this is it, I'm positive. Her father breaks. He squints, studying the bushes. You're right, he says at last. This is it. Your mother has good eyes, Anna. Anna sees trees, big ones, smaller ones, bushes, tall grass. No special marker. No difference in the landscape from the cluster of trees they have just passed. Your mother and I used to catch birds here, her father is beaming. Mommy, remember Beatrice? But her mother is already out of the car. It's still here, I see it. Come, John. She quickens her pace. Her father hurries towards her. Anna tries to follow them. But the sleeves of her blouse gets caught in a knot of twigs. She stops to untangle herself, and nettles cling to her pants. She bends to pluck them out. She clears one leg only to find the other leg of her pants crimped with more nettles. She reaches for a limb of a tree to steady herself, and her fingers grasp the sharp ends of a branch. Everywhere she turns, she's stuck, pricked, prodded. She stumbles over dry branches and loosened stones. They are far ahead of her. She cannot see them. She hears only their voices. Imagine that, the father says. Come. Her mother urges him on. We are almost there. The rain that fell has thickened the underbrush. Above the sky strains through tiny spaces between leaves at the top of giant trees. Below the grasses, below the green is dark, threatening, it seems to Anna. The forest is closing in on her. She can barely see more than 2 feet in front of her. Her heart is hammering. The parents have stopped speaking. There are no human voices to guide her. All around her, the leaves on the trees swish ominously. Fruit falling on the ground makes sounds like the explosion of bullets. Birds fluttering their wings terrify her. A black, yellow-beaked crow calls. She stifles the urge to scream. Be not afraid. This is her island, her rainforest, but she cannot quiet her heart. It hammers still, beating loudly in her throat. Then suddenly, in a parting of the trees, she sees them. That's up there.
Thank you. Well, I'm doing, because this is part of the big read, and Luis Alberto Urrea's wonderful book about migration, and about immigration, migrations, travels, odysseys, whatever. I really was thinking about what, which section of my novel I would read. But in Conquistadora, which is my most recent book, my main character is not aware of herself as being an immigrant. She is a colonist. So when you're there to colonize a place, you just don't think of yourself as an immigrant. So I said, well, I'm just not going to write. I'm not going to read about Anna because even though she is technically, I'm going to read about something. I'm going to do something different. And what I'm going to do is read from my work in progress. This may make it to the final book, or it might not. But this particular story takes place today. And it's a Puerto Rican young woman who was born in the Bronx, has been raised in the Bronx, has never been to Puerto Rico. And in her late 20s realizes that she has inherited a house in Puerto Rico. And so she's going there for the first time. So I'm going to read two very short sections that are actually part of the same chapter. It's her leaving New York and then arriving in Puerto Rico. And her name is Danny. All the people that we hear about, hopefully it'll make sense to you. Jorge drove me to the airport. Vivian sat next to him. Mom and I were in the back, her hand squeezing mine every few minutes as if to make sure we were still in touch. The radio was on, loud. There were 12 Spanish stations in the New York metropolitan area, six of which Jorge had programmed into his radio. Every time a song ended, he pressed the next button to hear what was playing there. At the same time, Jorge and Vivian were screaming at each other over whether he should take the Throg's Neck or the Whitestone Bridge to JFK. Jorge punched a button, and Daddy Yankee riffed that he was leaving his mark on her pants. Vivian fired a long list of relatives and friends I should look up while I was in Puerto Rico. Jorge jabbed a button, and Shakira's hips don't lie. Mom added to Vivian's list because I was related to every Puerto Rican on the island. The names were familiar because she'd already printed a list stuffed into one of the pockets of my carry-on. Jorge pressed another button, and Calle 13 rapped that Boricuas moistened their rice with avocado so they could harvest 14-carat buttocks. Vivian yelled that she told him she did. There was always traffic on the Van Wyck. We should have gone to Cross Island. What do you know, Jorge yelled back. You can't even drive. Mom hoped I'd visit her great-aunt Barbie, who was in an Alzheimer's home in Yabucoa. She wouldn't have any idea who I was, but it was a nice gesture. She was family. Jorge whacked a button. Don't stop the party, Pitbull called. Zigga, 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 zow. I jumped from the car as we squealed in front of the terminal. You don't need to bring me inside. The suitcase has wheels. You're sure? I'll just park over there. I'm fine. Mom squeezed me. Vivian squeezed me. Jorge squeezed me. Then Mom squeezed me again. They were crying. We were not the only Puerto Ricans on the curb with such effusive goodbyes. Textéame as soon as you get there, Mom called as Jorge guided her into the car. Que Dios te bendiga, hija. They waved until I entered the terminal. It was light-filled, and compared to the car I just escaped from, quiet. The TSA line was long, and I was jittery, hoping I could get to the other side of the scanners before Mom, Vivian, and Jorge changed their minds about not parking the car. So she gets into the Airbus. The joke about Puerto Ricans is la guagua aérea, the Airbus, constantly coming back to her, so now she arrives. I texted Mom as soon as we landed so she wouldn't worry my plane was lost in the Bermuda Triangle. 2 steps outside the air-conditioned terminal, the heat and humidity were like walking into warm fog. My expensively keratined and flat iron hair frizzed into its natural curl and my clothes wrinkled and shrunk against my body. I wanted to run back into the dry, cool air, but uniformed officials made sure no one did that. People were bunched behind a low barrier, craning their necks for passengers, calling out names, happy to see them. Beyond the barrier, a woman about my age held a sign, D. Fuentes. She waved when I recognized my name. Hi, I'm Patricia. She extended her hand and led me out of the throng. I work for Mr. Worthy, padre and hijo. They're waiting at the house. She wore a tight, knee-high navy blue pencil skirt suit with a printed shirt under the jacket. She was petite, but made up for it by balancing over yellow platform 5-inch heels. She clicked across the broad sidewalk and clogged street with such determination that everyone stepped aside and vehicles stopped to let her through. At the black SUV on the curb, the driver grabbed my suitcase as Patricia and I climbed into the back seat. How was your flight? Great, thank you. She opened a folder and shuffled its contents. This is for you. On this page are our work and cell numbers, emails, and our 2 office addresses. Here's the password for Wi-Fi in the house and instructions to change it to something that makes sense to you. This is a map of the old city, but even if you try, you can't get lost. It's really small. I've circled the stores where if you mention Worthy & Sons, you get a 10% discount. It means they're clients. Wow, so organized. It's my job. Excuse me, I have to take this call. She turned to the window to speak rapid-fire Spanish into a Bluetooth earpiece. I'd been watching Univision and Telemundo in New York to brush up on the language and picked up half of what she was saying. Patricia was annoyed because someone had altered her plans. She now must coordinate where several friends were to meet before a Wisin concert in the Choliseo. She finished the conversation and attacked her cell phone, thumbing frantically for the next few minutes. Just as we reached the exit from the airport, we came to a dead stop. Cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs inched in opposite directions of the 4-lane road lined with strip malls. To my right were hotels with familiar logos. I wasn't surprised by the familiar signage. My sojourns by webcam had shown me that estadounidense commerce could be found just about anywhere in the world. We entered the highway as the sky darkened. Fat raindrops plopped onto the windshield and blinding lightning zigzagged too close for comfort, followed by deafening thunder. We were inside a drum as rain pounded overhead and streams of water washed over the windows. It was impossible to see beyond the dashboard. Don't worry, Patricia said. It'll pass. It always rains in the afternoon. I stored the information into memory, then realized she was speaking in Spanish on the phone, but when she turned her attention to me again, she spoke English. I was offended, even though I could understand her better now. We sat in silence, listening to the rain pummeling the SUV, until just as suddenly as it started, the storm moved along and traffic started crawling again. Less than a quarter mile later, the road opened, the sun shone again, but the sense that I'd passed some sort of gauntlet put me on edge. My defenses were rising like a mirage-inducing vapor, drying off the moisture on the cement streets.